Okay, let's dive into this. And we're actually starting right at the horrifying climax of our origin story. These are the chilling, final words spoken by a man named Ron. I want you to imagine the scene for a second. A freezing, endless expanse of snow, completely devoid of trees or animals. A group of friends is lost, starving, their food supplies long gone. And right in the center of this white wasteland, one man, John, has succumbed to the ultimate taboo just to survive. He has just murdered and eaten his companions. Ron is his final victim. But with his dying breath, he doesn't beg for his life. No way. Instead, he delivers this absolute, devastating curse upon his cannibalistic friend.
Section 1. The Birth of a Curse. Starvation and Madness in the Snow.
So before Ron's death, John's sheer starvation drove him to butcher and consume the rest of his party. But that horrific act of survival awoke something else, a beast. You see, the Wendigo, as detailed in our source material, is not just some random wild predator roaming the woods. It's a direct, supernatural consequence of that ultimate taboo. In fact, if we look at real-world Algonquian folklore, the Wendigo is a spirit of gluttony that literally infects those who resort to cannibalism. John's feral hunger physically and mentally transformed him into this ravenous, decaying entity forever trapped in the snow.
Section 2. A false sense of security. Camping in Himicha. Our story now shifts gears a bit to 4 college friends. We've got Shub, Kunal, Prashant, and Rishav, and they are heading out to the Rome Dan forest for a birthday camping trip. They are completely oblivious to the curse lurking in the woods, displaying this almost comedic arrogance. When they get warned about the forest, they literally laugh it off with this exact tragic quote. "If a carnivore comes, we'll eat it together. Are we less than any animal?" It's just a brilliant piece of irony, isn't it? They're out here boasting about being at the absolute top of the food chain, totally foreshadowing their own doom.
The source gives us a very clear timeline that slowly, masterfully builds the suspense. They arrive in the bitter cold of January, with these freezing winds just whipping through the trees. They set up camp, light a nice fire, and spend the evening doing exactly what you'd expect on a trip like this: roasting chicken, drinking some beer, and chatting in a circle. At 11 p.m., they celebrate Shib by cutting his birthday cake. But by midnight, the cold just becomes way too much. Their hands and feet are literally going numb, so they decide to call it a night and retreat to the warmth of their tents.
Now, the physical separation here is absolutely crucial to the chaos that's about to unfold. They split into 2 tents. Shub and Kunal are in tent 1, while Prashant and Rishab are nearby in tent 2. This isolation is key because it means that when the horror finally kicks off, they won't all be able to see or even process what is happening at the exact same time.
Section 3. The Bloodthirsty Attack. The Nightmare Awakens.
Deep in the night, Shub is jolted awake. He's hit by this horrific, overwhelming stench of rotting meat, and he sees a strange shadow outside the tent. Now, his tentmate Kunal just brushes it off, but Prashant actually steps out of the other tent with a revolver to investigate, so Shub follows. And when he finds Prashant completely frozen in terror behind a tree, the true horror of the situation is revealed. Standing directly in front of their friend Rishab is the beast. The text describes this incredibly vividly. It's towering like a massive tree, it's covered in feral filth, and it's emitting that unbearable stench of rotting flesh. It's essentially the decaying embodiment of starvation right there in front of them.
What happens next is just a blur of absolute, helpless terror. The beast strikes with lightning speed. It sinks its wolf-like teeth straight into Rishab's neck, just tearing at his shoulder. Prashant is totally paralyzed by sheer panic. He fumbles and actually drops his revolver. Seeing this, Shub makes a desperate split-second choice. He scoops up the dropped weapon from the snow, turns, and just sprints away with every ounce of strength he has left. Back behind him, the text describes the Wendigo using its massive nails to literally rip Rishab's chest wide open, diving into his flesh while he screams. It's truly horrific.
Section 4. Fire and Flight. A Desperate Escape.
Shub is running blindly until he finally reaches Kunal back at the tents. He's pale as a ghost, delivering the absolutely horrific news that a monster is actively eating their friends right in front of him. But before they can even figure out a plan, bam, that rotting smell hits them again. Shub looks up and hears the creature rapidly climbing down a nearby tree. But get this, it's not moving like a man anymore. The text specifically notes it descends like a 4-legged animal. As it hits the ground, it brandishes these incredibly long, blood-soaked nails and whips out a massive, terrifying tongue. It has officially zeroed in on its final 2 victims.
Let's move along and see how this builds, because this is where Shub really fights for his life. Knowing bare hands are completely useless here, he relies on a primal defense. He grabs a burning piece of wood straight from the remnants of their campfire.
The Wendigo lunges, and its unnatural speed allows it to strike Shoop right in the arm. But Shoop fights through the agonizing pain. I mean, he knows that if he drops that wood, they are dead for sure. He thrusts the burning branch directly into the Wendigo's body. The beast, clearly terrified of the flames, recoils and retreats just enough for Shoop and Kunal to make a desperate, mad dash out of the forest and sprint straight for their car.
Section 5. An Endless Curse. The Horrific Twist.
So they scramble into their vehicle, slamming the doors shut against the horrors of the dark forest. They think they've actually survived, but as they're sitting inside the car catching their breath, Kunal begins to complain. And he's not just out of breath. He utters this incredibly disturbing line. "My whole body is breaking with pain. It feels like my bones are cracking." You guys, this isn't shock. This is a profound structural agony that directly echoes the very transformation we learned about at the very beginning of this explainer.
So the crucial point here is what happens next. Shub, desperate to just get them out of there, steps out into the cold for a split second to take the driver's seat. But when he opens the door, he doesn't find his friend Kunal waiting for him. No, he finds a creature sitting in the driver's seat, letting out a low, feral growl, exactly like a wild animal. The source material leaves us with a truly terrifying revelation. This is not an animal. It is a curse. The infection has spread. And this brilliantly illustrates the true horror of the tale, leading us right to our final question. Is the Wendigo just a physical monster lurking in the snowy woods, something you can fight off with fire and bullets? Or is it a supernatural curse, an endless cycle of hunger and madness that simply passes from one victim to the next, guaranteeing that the nightmare will never, ever truly end? Definitely something to think about next time you find yourself deep in the cold, dark woods. Thank you so much for joining me on